Now, I want to talk a little bit about, so the period that we're really talking about here is about a 5 or 6 week period in December 2021 to January, the end of January 2022, right? So I want to talk about what the majority of your life was like in that room in Florida. And just so we're clear, when you moved from Arizona, was the room there and ready for you?
Yes.
So you never stayed anywhere else in the house?
No, the room was not ready for me in Arizona, but it was ready for me in Florida.
In Florida, I'm so sorry. When you came from Arizona to Florida, the room had already been finished being specially constructed for you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about kind of what your typical school day was like during that time period, all right? Typically, just on average, what time of the day would you be woken up?
I'd be woken up around 6:30 to 7 o'clock.
And how would you be woken up? Like, how would it be wake up time? Did you have an alarm clock? Would you naturally wake up? How would that happen?
Tim and Tracy would unlock my door.
Okay, so someone would come in?
Yes.
Would your lights have been off and you be in the dark
Yes.
before that? At that point, would you be given the opportunity to go to the bathroom?
Yes.
If you had to use the bucket at that point, sometime during the previous night, what would happen?
I would dump it into the bushes behind the house.
Now, you said that you would wake up sometimes they would wake you up on average between 6 and 7 in the morning.
Yes.
You would get to go to the bathroom. What would happen when you were done going to the bathroom?
I would be put back in my room or doing household chores around the house.
When you were put back into the room, you be locked in?
Yes.
And at this point, would you get dressed for school?
Yes.
Where were your clothes kept?
Outside the room.
And so when we say outside the room, like in the garage,
Yes.
would you get breakfast?
Occasionally, yes.
Okay. So were there times, some of those days, that they didn't give you breakfast?
Yes.
But were there also lots of days where they did, in fact, give you breakfast?
It wasn't a lot. It was probably 50-50.
Okay. When you would get breakfast, would that be out in the kitchen with the rest of the family, or where would it be?
It would be either outside or in my room.
Okay. And when you say outside, you mean outside the house?
Yes.
When it was in the room, what typically would you get for breakfast?
Peanut butter and bread and a fruit or something.
Okay, a fruit like something like a banana?
Yes.
And so when you say peanut butter and bread, do you mean just like peanut butter on 2 slices of bread?
Yes.
And those would be brought into your room?
Yes.
And you would have it in the room?
Yes.
Would that be the breakfast almost every day? Or would there be variation?
I'll be the same breakfast every single day.
Now, while you're eating breakfast in the room, would you have to have anything to do in the room, or what would be happening before you go to school?
I had a sleeve of books and textbooks, but that's all I had.
Okay. Would there sometimes you do homework in the morning?
Yes.
What time approximately, so would you be in the room from the time you got let out at 6 and 7 in the morning until it was time to leave for school?
Yes.
What time approximately do you leave for school?
9 o'clock.
And then you get to school?
Yes.
And school's pretty close, right?
Yes.
And so you did, in fact, attend Independence Middle School while you were here in Jupiter, Florida.
Yes.
Now, at school, would you get lunch?
No, I brought lunch.
Who made that lunch?
Tracy.
And what would be in that lunch?
A plain peanut butter sandwich. Either some sort of chips and a fruit.
Would you be allowed to, if you wanted to buy extra snacks at school?
No.
Were you allowed to have any more snacks than what was given to you in your lunch?
No.
Were you allowed to buy a school lunch?
No.
Did you want snacks?
Yes.
Did the other kids at school have snacks?
Yes.
Is that something that was kind of hard for you? That to see other kids getting snacks and not being able to have them?
Yes.
Now, what time approximately would school be over?
3 o'clock.
And what time would you get home from school?
Around 3:30.
And then when you would get home from school on most days, what would happen?
I'd be put back into my room.
Okay. And when you say put back into the room, are you locked in the room?
Yes.
And would you have been allowed to leave the room during that time? Would you be allowed, or did I confuse you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have the choice, if you wanted to say, sit in the living room and watch TV after school? Is that something that you could do?
No.
Could you be in the house? In the main house?
No.
Now, so you get back around 3:30, and then how long do you stay in the room in the afternoon?
On most days, until 7 o'clock or dinner time
Okay. Would you eat dinner in the room or with the family?
in the room.
And are there some times on occasion that you would be allowed to eat dinner with the family?
Yes.
Most of the time, though, where were you eating dinner?
In my room.
And when you're eating dinner in the room, are you locked in the room?
Yes.
Are you, did they ever let you out before bed to go to the bathroom?
Yes.
Okay. Would that be kind of right before you went to bed?
Yes.
Sustained rephrase.
Okay. When would you usually be let out to go to the bathroom? At the end of the day?
Like when Tim and Tracy go to bed, which is around 9, 10 o'clock.
And after you're let out to go to the bathroom at night, what happened next?
I was locked into my room.
And then throughout the night, are you locked in the room?
Yes.
Now, when the defendants would go to bed, what happened with the lights?
The lights were off or on.
Now, in the room, I want to talk about we talked about what furniture you had. At some points during this time frame, did you have other things in the room?
Well, I had my small selection of toys and just books.
Okay, so books, toys, some
Yes.
toys. At some point, did some of those items get taken out of the room?
Yes.
And then you said that you had books and toys. Was there a point where you only had books?
Yes.
Did those books eventually, some of them get taken away?
Yes.
And how many books were you kind of left with?
Like 2 or 3 textbooks.
Were you allowed to have electronics in the room?
No.
Go ahead.
Rephrase that. The only electronic allowed in my room was my school computer.
Were you allowed to have it in with you at all times?
No.
Just when you were doing schoolwork?
Yes.
When you had your school computer, were you allowed to play computer games on it at all ever?
No.
Is that something that a lot of middle school kids do?
Yes.
Is that something that kids would talk about doing at school?
Yes.
Did you want to play games on your computer?
Yes.
Now, we talked a little bit about the lights being off at night. Were there times where the lights were off during the day?
Yes.
And approximately when that would happen, how long would that go on for? Like, would it be for 5 minutes or would it be for longer than that?
It'll be around for a couple hours.
Now, I want to talk about other times in Florida. Were there times in Florida where you were in fact outside of the house,
Yes.
or inside the house itself?
Yeah, there were times where I was inside the house.
There were some occasions where you were allowed to be in the living room.
Yes.
Is that what you mean, or in the kitchen with the rest of the family?
Usually I was just in the living room doing chores, or in the kitchen also doing chores.
Now, was there time in Florida where you were outside of the house?
Yes.
What would you be doing outside of the house, mostly?
Raking, leaves, moving shelves. Yeah.
Now, when you were outside of the house, are you under the direct supervision of your parents, or are you kind of out there by yourself?
They had a camera to watch me, but it was another Ring camera. But otherwise, I was not supervised while I was outside.
So you'd be outside of the house by yourself for periods of time?
Yes.
Now, were there a couple occasions where maybe you did get to play or, interact with your siblings outside?
Yeah.
But for the most part, when you were outside, what were you having to do?
Yard work, chores.
And could you, when you were doing the yard work of the chores, if you got hot or you needed a drink of water, were you allowed to just go in the house and get those things?
No.
Were there times where the front door was locked and you couldn't get in?
Yes.
What would you have to do in that circumstance? Would you just have to wait outside or
Yes,
something
I had to
else?
wait outside.
Okay, until they decide to let you in?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about, in Florida, were there instances where the defendant in this case, Tim Ferriter, acted toward you in a way that was physically aggressive?
Repeat the question.
Was there ever any physical aggression toward you in Florida?
There was instances of grabbing and pushing, but otherwise, no
Okay.
physical contact such as punching, hitting, smacking.
Right, none of that happened during the time frame in Florida.
No.
Were there times where he was verbally aggressive to you in Florida?
Yes.
What kind of things would he say to you?
It would say, "This is a piece of
You can spell it.
SHIT. You better, yeah, you better pick it up." Yeah.
Would he call you names?
No.
Would he yell at you?
Yes.
And would he scream at you?
Yes.
Did it appear to you, based on how he was interacting with you, that he was angry at you?
Yes.
And is the same true for Tracy?
No.
Now, because of his verbal aggression, did you have a belief as to whether or not he could, if you didn't listen to him, or that there was a risk, or were you concerned that he would be physically aggressive to you?
I can safely assume that he could cause bodily harm to me.
Overruled.
And is that based on some of your prior experiences in Arizona?
Yes.
Overruled.